and welcome to the League of Women Voters of St. Lucie County Candidate Forum for this election year 2022. I'm Sabrina Taylor, the current president, and before we move on into the forum, which is the reason why you've joined us, just a few quick reminders and important information before we get started. So by now, you should have received your vote by mail ballots as they were mailed out on September 30th. If you have not, please make sure to call the supervisor of the elections office to make sure that you have access to that ballot. The last date to request a ballot, vote by mail ballot that is October 29. The last date to mail it is October 31. You can either choose to mail it back or you can actually hand deliver it. If you choose to deliver it, if you choose to mail it rather, make sure that you're doing so between 10 to 14 days to make sure that it gets into the supervisor's election office so your ballot can be properly counted. The ballot must be received by mail no later than 7 p.m. on the day of the general election, which is scheduled for November 8th. Early voting is scheduled to begin this Monday, October 24th, and it runs through Saturday, November 5th, including Sunday, October 30th, from the hours of 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. There's also an additional early voting day, which is Sunday, November 6th, from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. There are 6 voting locations in the county, 2 in Fort Pierce and 4 in Port St. Lucie. The 2 Fort Pierce locations is the Renaissance Business Park, also known as the Orange Blossom Business Center. That's on Okeechobee Road. The Zora Neale Hurston Library on Avenue D in Fort Pierce. The 3rd location is a new one for Port St. Lucie. It is the Indian River State College Veterans Center located on Northwest California Boulevard. Mid-Florida Credit Union Event Center on US 1. The Paula A. Lewis Library on Rosser Boulevard. And lastly, the Port St. Lucie Community Center. Please make sure, ma'am and sir, that you bring a photo ID and a signature which are both required. To learn more about the League of Women Voters and how to get involved, please visit us at lwvslc.org. And before we move on, we also have, you can access not only on our Facebook page, which you're viewing us live, we also want to make you aware of a nice free feature to the voting public, and it's called Vote 411. The website for that is www.vote411.org. Again, www.vote411.org. It's a great way to go in and include your address and your city and zip code, and it allows you to customize your ballot. So part of that, prepare your vote, right? Plan your vote so you can see what the ballot is going to look like. You also can visit the League on Twitter, our Facebook page, as I indicated, as well as Instagram. And we also have a YouTube page. Now, enough about us, and now on to the forum. So tonight, you were here with candidates running for the Florida State Rep District 85. The format for tonight's forum will consist of a 90-second introduction by each candidate, followed by a series of questions. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer each question, and finally, the candidates will also have a 2-minute close. The order of the candidates was randomly selected. Also, no, this is not a debate, so candidates will make their statements and answer questions as offered by the facilitator. Candidates also will be alerted at the 30-second time frame to let them know they have 30 seconds remaining and to finish up their comments, and then again when their time is up. So our moderator for this evening is Carol Wyatt. Carol is the co-owner and operator of local radio stations WPSL, Port St. Lucie, WSTU in Stewart, and WJNX in Fort Pierce. She is also the president of WPSL Christmas Kids of St. Lucie County, and she's also the past president of the Rotary Club of Port St. Lucie, as well as a member of the Port St. Lucie Businesswomen. Carol has many years in broadcasting, including as a reporter in Los Angeles prior to moving to Florida in 1993. We're so honored to have her as our candidate forum moderator yet for another year. And now on to Carol.
Thank you, Sabrina, and welcome to the League of Women Voters of St. Lucie County Candidate Forums. We thank the members of the League for developing the questions for tonight's forum. We thank the candidates for participating, and particularly we thank you for making sure you have informed yourself before the November election. Tonight, Florida State House District 85. It is a term of 2 years, representing a district that includes roughly the southern half of Port St. Lucie and the northern part of Martin County. Our candidates, the incumbent, Toby Overdorf, and the challenger, Curtis J. Tucker. Both were invited for this evening's forum. Mr. Tucker is with us. If Mr. Overdorf joins us, we will work him in as we go along here. So let's start with opening statements. Curtis Tucker.
Well, thank you. Just a brief background on me. After graduating from Harvard with a degree in economics, I returned home to Albany and worked for over 3 decades in New York State government, including 10 years with the Assembly Ways and Means Committee, 20 years with the State Housing Agency, and then I moved to New York City and was the legislative representative for statewide Affordable Housing Trade Association. One interesting thing about my time in New York State government is that the Senate was always controlled by Republicans and the Assembly by Democrats. So we had to learn how to find consensus needed to gain bipartisan support to enact any legislation. So I think that will serve me well as I move to Florida. I moved to Florida 10 years ago and have kept busy as a Publix cashier and as a Lyft and Uber driver. These jobs have helped me connect with my community and to see and hear firsthand how people, especially seniors on fixed income, struggle to pay for everyday expenses. Based on a newspaper article I recently read, over the past 4 years, property insurance has increased 116%, home prices are up 65%, apartment rentals are up 41%, and utility rates are up 20%. So the cost of living is really being dramatically impacted. My pledge to the people of State House District 85 is to use my over 30 years of legislative experience to work with the new administration and my legislative colleagues on both sides of the aisle to develop real solutions to these pocketbook issues that we all face. Thank you.
Okay, let's proceed to the questions then. The first one,
Okay.
the homeowners insurance industry in Florida was in crisis even before Hurricane Ian. In 2021 alone, over 11 companies liquidated or left the Florida market. Following the destruction of Hurricane Ian, we know there will be premium hikes and more homeowners will be dropped. How do you plan to address the problem and protect Florida homeowners?
Well, I think I'm going to rely on a suggestion from Republican State Senator Jeff Brandes, who said that what is needed is an emergency task force meeting to deal with this problem. The situation, as you outlined, was very serious, a crisis, and insurance companies were leaving the state, and now the hurricane has just impacted it and exacerbated what was a crisis situation. So I think that the need for an emergency task force meeting is essential, and I would support that.
Okay, second question. Florida is also experiencing a housing crisis. Housing costs have been on the rise and most are out of range for first-time buyers. The hospitality industry that supports our tourism is struggling to find workers because they simply cannot afford to live here. How will you address the housing problem?
Well, the affordable housing crisis didn't develop overnight. It has been the result of a lack of funding for almost 15 years. The major source of funding for affordable housing is the Sadowski Housing Trust Fund. It's funded with formula from doc stamps, but for years, including when first there was not really an affordable housing crisis back in the early 2000, they started taking money from the Sadowski Housing Trust Fund. They call it sweeps. And the result has been that if those funds had remained in the Housing Trust Fund, they probably would have added about 94 to 100,000 affordable housing units. So now we're playing catch up. And I think what's needed is the legislation was enacted to eliminate the sweeps, which is good. However, the formula to fund the Sadowski Housing Trust Fund was cut by 50%. So they're now getting about $338 million, which is a good amount of money and you know, it helps, but it's half of what they really should be investing in it. So the first thing I would do is I would look to repeal the 50% reduction in the Sadowski Housing Trust Fund.
Okay, next question. There is an amendment on the ballot that gives a tax break to homeowners that harden their homes against flooding. What should be done at the state level to harden all properties, private and public, against flooding, since natural disasters tend to destroy large areas, not confined to private property, cities, or counties?
Well, I think that the disastrous and the catastrophe that the hurricane left Florida with has given us an opportunity to do a lot of the things that probably should have been done. The federal government is going to be there to help us along the way. And I think that it would be very important to have some of the funds that are being made available be directed to just that kind of problem.
Okay. Next question. The surveys tell us 70% of Americans support gun law reform. We've all heard the NRA's statement, guns don't kill people, people kill people. In your opinion, which people should not have guns?
Well, I think first of all, I would support an assault weapons ban. I know that the House has enacted that. I know Florida has an assault weapons ban for people over 21, under 21, but I think it should be extended. There's also some common sense things that should be done. We should prevent violence. We should extend and close loopholes on background checks, prevent domestic abusers from having access to firearms, and funding locally driven violence prevention strategies. Red flag laws need to be strengthened so that family members who notice warning signs that someone close to them is a threat to harm themselves or others can petition the court to suspend access to guns. So, you know, I think all of those things would be helpful, but I think the most important thing in my mind would be that, an assault weapons ban.
Next question. Many Floridians and their families continue to be without health insurance. The cost of medical care has risen dramatically over the last decade. How do you propose to address this problem?
Well, under the Affordable Care Act, states are given the option to expand Medicaid. Florida is one of 12 states that has not done that. I would suggest that it's very important for Florida the Florida legislature to take that action to expand Medicaid. The result of expanding Medicaid would be that we'd add about 1.3 million Florida residents to get coverage under Medicare. There's also this problem with the coverage gap where some people just can't get insurance because they fit in a certain category. And there's about 415,000 people in Florida that fit in that who would now be covered by Medicaid. And we had a statewide think tank come up with an estimate for these are Florida figures, but we wanted to see how it would impact State House District 85, and it would add somewhere between 10 and 12,000 individuals to now have Medicaid coverage. So I think that's really, I'm not sure. And it also would bring in about $6.6 billion to the state. There would be a slight increase in the cost of the state, but it's over, there's incentives and other things that actually make it a net gain. So we're leaving $6.6 billion on the table. We're not covering 1.3 million people who could be covered. And I'm not sure why it hasn't been done, because it's been available since 2014.
Okay, next question. In the last 2 legislative sessions, bills have been passed that claim to secure our election system, but are viewed by some as punitive measures for organizations that advocate for voter participation. In your opinion, did Florida have a clean election in 2020, as Governor DeSantis stated? And if so, why do we need any of these laws?
Well, that's a good question. It doesn't seem that his statement and the actions that are being taken are consistent. And I do think that Florida had a very safe and sound election. There wasn't a great deal of evidence of fraud. And now suddenly we're making things more difficult for people to vote. And I don't think that's necessary. I also think that the Office of Elections, Crime and Security group is really, I'm not sure what their purpose is. I know so far that they arrested 20 formerly convicted felons for illegally voting. However, as you look more closely into it, I think what was demonstrated was the bureaucratic failure of the state in allowing these people to vote, because they went ahead and voted having been told they could vote. And now all of a sudden, they're being arrested and charged with a potential felony for doing what the state told them they could do. So I think that's just, and I think that they've just released body camera of how some of these arrests went down, and the people just are really surprised, scared, and it's just, it's uncomfortable, I think, to watch.
Okay, next question. What is your position on Florida's current 15-week abortion ban? And will you support legislation that further restricts access to abortion?
Further restricts?
Would you support legislation that further restricts?
No, not at all. I think that women, it's their choice. I think I don't think there should be any restrictions on women's right to make their own decisions. I think that's a decision for the woman, her family, and her physician. So I would not be supportive of all. I'll support all efforts to protect a woman's right to make her own healthcare choices, but I would never support any further restrictions.
If we have any questions from the Facebook audience, we'll work them in. If not, let's go to our closing statement. Mr. Tucker.
Okay. I think some of it will be what I started with. I'm running to provide the people in State House District 85 with a different voice in Tallahassee. As a Publix cashier and Uber driver, I see and hear firsthand how too many people in my community, especially seniors on fixed income, struggle to pay for everyday expenses. I see the current administration and my opponent letting the affordable housing crisis spiral out of control without offering any proposals to address skyrocketing rents, lack of home ownership opportunities, and unaffordable properties insurance. Offering no solutions to the public education crisis, where there are over 9,000 vacancies of qualified teachers and whose pay ranks second to last among the states. Choosing to eliminate a woman's right to make her own healthcare choices. Choosing the interests of big sugar and FP&L instead of the environment and utility rate payers. My pledge to the people in State House District 85 is to be a voice for you, not special interest. I'll support all efforts to protect a woman's right to make her own healthcare choices, and I'll use my over 30 years of legislative experience to develop real solutions to the affordable housing, property insurance, and education crisis.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Thank you very much, Curtis Tucker. And certainly we want to thank the League of Women Voters for developing the questions and contacting all the candidates and organizing the forum. We thank the candidates for participating. Again, both opponents were invited this evening, Toby Overdorf and Curtis Tucker. Thank you, Mr. Tucker, for being here. And particularly, we want to thank everyone who's watching and listening for informing yourselves about this November general election. Sabrina?
Thank you again, Carol, for always being a fabulous moderator. And thank you, Mr. Tucker, for making time not only to spend time with the League, but more importantly, to the voting public as people make decisions that certainly will directly impact their lives. So thank you all always for continuing to support the League in our community efforts. Make sure you plan your vote, and by all means, please do vote. Have a good night. Stay safe. Bye-bye.
Thank you.